Hey folks, Travis here from Oldsmobile Productions. A quick little update before we get into the video. First of all, thank you, Doug, for being patient. We shot this footage in 2016 before I had any kind of steady cam stuff, so apologize if the footage is a little shaky, but we're finally getting it out now. Secondly, we're down to just 4 copies of the 2023 Oldsmobile Productions calendar. So if you want one, hope you got it already, because by the time this video goes live, those will probably be gone. We do have about 14 copies of 48 Cars, 48 States book left. Go to royboyproductions.com, go to the store page to check those out. And we have a brand new shirt coming up. It's going to be available for pre-order here in anywhere from a few days to a couple weeks from now. We're trying to get all the details worked out before we put it up for pre-order. But I'll show you a little picture of it right here. And that's going to be a deal once we print it. We're not going to continue to print it forever. It's going to be a limited run deal. So enjoy this video, and I've got more of these coming from 2016 and newer, but we'll get them out as quickly as we can, and hope you dig it. Folks, we are running down the road in Wichita, Kansas, and Doug Reed's Toad. And Doug, this car has been in the family longer than your children have been in the family.
Yeah.
You first got the car, it wasn't even a driver, right? It was a former race car, was that right?
It had been used to race, but it was just basically a body and frame. There wasn't any front on it.
Okay.
No motor or transmission in it. We had a 57 Olds 371 motor and 49 Cadillac transmission, and we made it together and put in it. And a friend of mine had a 50 Olds front end, which is the same as a 49 with the exception of the chrome trim on the fender. So we filled all the holes in the fender and made a 49 out of it. Put it together, got it running, drove it for a while in primer, and then had it painted. That was in probably 72, and drove it that way, painted it a green that was on the early 70s Rivieras, kind of a dark green. Drove it that way for a while, and then found some rust and decided to fix it and repaint it. And Hub Harness put the patch panels in for me on the quarters and rear fenders. Drove it that way until about 77 or 78, and decided I wanted to change it and wanted to be more of a custom. So I talked to Eldon and Jerry Titus. That was about the time they were getting first Merc Deuce together, and I just told Eldon, I said, just make a mild custom out of it. So he nosed it and decked it, took the hood down to Stucky and had it louvered, put a sunken antenna in it, put a flare along the bottom rockers, and that's about it. About as mild as you can get, being traditional. We painted a frog eye pearl green with a pearl paint out of Kansas City, out of Lockwood Automotive, and it looked real good and everything, but it was just missing something. So Jerry suggested we do a scallop layout on it, the tradition of Larry Watson. So he laid the scallops out, dark green and gold, and been that way ever since.
So it was redone. How many years ago did you have the car kind of gone through and freshened up?
Well, I think it was about 8 years ago. I found it had rust, and of course the old lacquer paint was cracking, chipping, and found rust around the rear fenders. So actually I went up to Russell, to Mike Jook's Automotive Artistry up there. I wanted it to look just the way it did. I didn't want to change it. Some people tell me, oh, you got to change it. You got to paint it black and put American torqueless wheels on it, or do this or do that, and that's not me. I'm old school. I'm what old school is, and the car's got to be traditional. We decided to paint it back, and I had some of the old paint left. Mike looked at it, and then he went through his color books, and he said, you know, so I can come really close to that color, but I can make it a lot brighter, a lot shinier than it was, which I'm glad he did, because it came out really nice. And since we was getting it repainted, I decided to get the interior redone. I put disc brakes on the front. I didn't redo the suspension or anything, because it was still pretty good shape from the first time. And it drives good for no more than I drive it.
Yeah. It's been together for quite a while. I guess it's...
Well, the wife and I were talking about this morning. It's been 30 years since we overhauled that motor. It probably only has 10,000 miles on it, but still, age counts, you know.
Yeah. Well, is Indy the farthest away you've ever driven the car?
Yeah, this car, yeah.
It was,
but it's been to Indiana 3 times. Went back for the first Hot Rod Magazine Street Machine Nationals in Indy. That was in 79, I believe, 79 or 80. And there was probably, that Street Machine Nationals, there was probably 4 customs there.
So on the front of the car, you have the Fundamentals plaque. Fundamentals, I know, was a club that started in was it 71 or 2?
71.
Okay. And have you been a member the whole time?
Yeah, I missed the very first meeting, but from then on I was a member until we quit, which we just quit having meetings.
Yeah.
Most of us guys that were in there for all those years still consider ourselves fundamentals, and we still do things together and see each other all the time. But as far as the club itself, it was pretty much the first resurrection hot rod and custom club in Wichita, kind of the second generation of clubs. You know, when we were young and in high school and stuff, we couldn't afford a car like this.
Yeah.
Didn't have the know-how to build one, but always liked them and always wanted one and just stayed with it. That's why I've kept the car for so many years. I know I couldn't build another one, and although I've had 3 other cars in the meantime, but this is the one I always kept, this one I always wanted. When we were in high school, the Oldsmobile was the hottest car.
Right.
And I always liked Oldsmobiles. I always wanted Oldsmobiles, and that's pretty much what I've always had. Some people are into Chevys, some people are into Fords, but I've just always been into Oldsmobiles. Well, when I was growing up and in high school and stuff, if you wanted to have a really hot car, you had an Olds motor in it. And then eventually the Chevy small block came along and they started doing a lot of stuff with it, and that and the Chrysler Hemi took over. But 57, 58, 59, if you wanted a hot car, you had an Olds motor in it. It's a stock factory.
Oh, it's the stock
57 J2 intake.
But it's the Offenhauser valve covers on
Offenhauser valve covers.
Yeah. You've added air conditioning.
Yeah. The motor's been balanced, and it's got a milling full race hydraulic cam in it. And transmission has been beefed where it shifts hard if you get on it. Pretty much old school stuff. Well, all these younger kids talk about old school, but this car is old school. Well, and it takes an eye and it takes a little bit of know-how to know what a traditional car is. You see people they'll go out and make a nice start on something and get to a certain point with it, then they start adding things that are not traditional. You have to have the eye and you have to have the knowledge of what's traditional. That's what's so great about the Custom Car Revival in Indianapolis, is it is traditional. The cars that come, if it's not traditional, they won't let you in. But this car, the scallops is what makes it, and I owe that to Jerry Titus for his, what do you want to call it, his eye or his knowledge of what traditional scallops look like. And of course, Rocky Jr. for doing the traditional pinstriping and the outlines of the scallops and stuff, and he even put a frog on the trunk. If you can look at it and see it, I can see it. It's an old toad sitting there in pinstriping.
Well, I'll have to go back and look at that video a little more closely and see if I see that.